Hi, everybody. Good to see you this morning. My name is Carl Hodler. I'm co-founder of StoryTagger. So first of all, just thanks so much for coming along today. I know you guys are all super busy at the moment, and it's really amazing to see so many people interested in user-generated video and how that can support student storytelling. I appreciate there's only room for 100 in the webinar today, so well done for everyone who got in early and got in. But I'd also like to extend welcome to everyone tuning in on the live stream on YouTube. Please do sort of hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube, and so that we can get some shares running on that. And I think, you know, in the last few weeks, months now, kind of personal video has really transformed from like one of the tools that people really hated using to the one that we've really grown to rely on to retain human connection as we work and live apart. Webcam video is now a staple format on rolling news, and we've not only heard of Zoom fatigue, we've probably all experienced it as well. So in a few weeks, sort of personal homebrew selfie video has become normalized across generations. So with kind of technology and culture aligning, I guess it wouldn't be unreasonable to assume that asking students to share selfie videos to support and help marketing, recruitment, onboarding, student services would be a kind of oven-ready strategy. But the kind of problem is that while the tech and the culture are kind of almost aligned, one of the important things that hasn't changed is that whilst we're great at sharing stories, so if I hear someone telling me something that they did or something that they heard on the internet, you know, I can repeat that verbatim really effectively and spread that. It's much harder to create those sort of narratives ourselves. So we're not so good at crafting our own stories, especially if it has to be short, succinct, and on a topic that we might not really feel that we have expertise in. And in essence, that's what StoryTagger does. It guides people through the process of taking all the jumbled up stuff in their head and putting it into a really tight narrative arc. It coaches people through that sort of natural imposter syndrome we all feel when asked to make a video on something a little bit more complicated than our dog on a skateboard. And it kind of make sure the video is easy on the eye and meets some sort of really simple, basic, but important technical standards. So like in business, culture, news and sport, selfie video, personal video, whatever you want to call it, is going to play a bigger role in HE over the coming months and years. Because the pandemic is having a massive effect on students, and especially those starting this year. Much of what they expected to be hard baked into their experience has changed, or maybe even they think it's completely disappeared and they're really not sure what to expect. And reality, we're not quite sure how long this situation is going to last. London School of Economics, I think in partnership with Sussex, just released some research, I think it was this week or last week, that showed post-COVID, 18 to 25-year-olds are less likely to have confidence, in political institutions and leaders. And actually that confidence has plummeted quite dramatically. So while universities carry a lot more trust than politicians, you've probably seen a lot of the TikTok videos made by American college students who are already starting to call out universities for putting revenue before safety. So I think the UK is definitely in a better place as far as trust, but it still does need to be shored up quite effectively and quickly as well. And we can do this by surfacing some of the stories about students having positive experience that happened in September coming into this new environment. And really user-generated video is probably the only medium that's going to effectively deliver these messages to wider audiences. So In this session, we're going to dig a little deeper into why user-generated video is important to students and sharing message across those cohorts, why the pandemic has become a bit of a call to action to kind of really nail this kind of content, some tips and advice from experts on how to engage students and how personal videos can feed your content pipeline in some ways that you kind of may not have expected. So I'd like to introduce you to two people who've really been innovating with video technology for a number of years to help amplify student voice. Last week, I caught up with Tony Lee, who is head of global marketing at Study Group and now works as an independent HE marketing consultant, and Nick Taylor, who's editor-in-chief at the Student Room. Just in case you don't know those organizations, Study Group are one of the biggest international pathway providers in the UK. And the Student Room have, well, they've probably got the biggest student online community in the United Kingdom and work with many universities across the UK. So I started off asking Tony how he saw the pandemic affecting students.
It's been probably the biggest experiment in the history of mankind, where we've taken 1 billion students and asked them to do all their learning online. And so we've seen that happen in a matter of days and months. And a lot of it, I think, is going to stick with us. You know, I now have FaceTime calls with my elderly relatives, and that would never happen before. You know, they would never have jumped on a Zoom call for a Friday afternoon get-together. So I think we've all adapted the way that we use technology, and in particular, face-to-face video technology. So I think that for marketeers, it's actually a fantastic time because we've got these tools available to us, and suddenly that resistance to using them has disappeared. I think it's more of a priority now, A, because I think people are more unsure and therefore they need more reassurance. But equally, we're all living in a similar situation, I think, that international students have found themselves in for a long time, which is that you're remote. So a student that's maybe sitting in Hong Kong thinking of coming to the UK for the first time can't pop along to the open day. So they've always wanted to have that sort of remote access to content. And I think quite often now, as we've been in this lockdown, domestic students are facing the same challenges, that online can be the only source of information and that you're going to want to be able to do a lot of that research from the comfort of your own home.
Just for my own peace of mind, can I just have a thumbs up if you could hear the audio on Tony's video there? I'm sure you did. Excellent, fantastic. Phew, that's all my technology working now. I can relax for the rest of the session. So I thought Tony's parallel with international student marketing was really fascinating, and it shows we've already got models and processes for communicating effectively with remote audiences. But while there's certainly ideas that we can translate to domestic markets, I think one important thing to bear in mind is that a lot of international students also heavily rely on word of mouth and trusted advice on top of those centralized university communications. So being able to digitize and take a little bit more control over those recommendations is a challenge that I know Tony's been working on for a number of years. And one of the tactics he regularly uses is around storytelling. So I asked Tony how he could support domestic students with helping them share stories now.
I think it comes back to the traditional art of storytelling. Irrespective of the medium, there needs to be a story. And quite often as marketeers, we forget that. And we try to act like we're MTV pushing out promotional videos that don't have a beginning, middle or end. And I think that people are looking for real authentic stories of how people overcome adversity. Starting a university, leaving your home, being in a new city, all of these things are challenging at the best of times and can be downright frightening in the current times. And I think that people want to be able to see how other people have overcome those challenges in a very real sense. And I think that where there is an institution that is offering support and guidance, they want to be able to showcase that. And I think being able to showcase that, what better way than those people who have first-hand experienced it, telling the stories of their experiences. So I think that the technology just enables that rather than, we've always been able to do it. It's just the technology now is making it that much easier to both create and record the stories, and also to distribute and ensure that the right person hears the right story at the right time.
And I think that's a really important point, because the technology can now make sure that these videos are available to individuals at their time of need. But the real power behind the medium is that it contains very specific language and experiences that the audience will recognize, relate to, and most importantly, trust. It's challenging for any marketeer or salesperson to get into the head of prospective customers, but amplifying student voice is a sure way of achieving this. And so for me, the term authentic goes beyond seeing a recognizable or relatable face telling the story. It's getting into the attention to detail and the often overlooked nuances that make those stories feel compelling and real. And developing on the idea of student storytelling, I asked Nick from the Student Room how they were supporting students through the pandemic using their forums.
What we find on our forums is that people are saying, well, you know, what about me? I'm a private candidate. I don't go to a school. I'm self-tutoring, and how are things going to work out for me? Or you know, I was just retaking one exam, and so on. There are lots of smaller questions that aren't addressed by the mainstream media, and where we've seen our role during this lockdown period is to provide help and support for all of those students, and to help them to understand what the next steps in the process are going to be for them.
And I think one of the really exciting things about the forum space, like the one that Student Room provides, is that you start seeing the same questions popping up year after year. So you get that long tail effect that Amazon made famous, meaning that over time you build up a big amount of user-generated resources that continue to support people over time. It's like evergreen content, if you like. However, this year, as Nick pointed out, lots of new questions are surfacing, and students are desperate to find the answers as quickly as possible. And as Nick alluded, it's a huge ask for universities not to only predefine what those questions are, but also to be able to answer them. And since the very early days of the internet, this is a problem that only curated user-generated content could solve. So next I asked Tony how digital communications needed to adapt to help inform students about what life, will be like.
Students have been using digital tools to determine where they're going to go and study, and they've been doing research across a number of websites, and they've been using social media and YouTube and looking at videos. And so I think the challenges remain the same, which is to find a true value proposition and to articulate that value proposition in an authentic manner. And I would underline the word authentic. And I think that in many ways comes from peer-to-peer communication. It comes from students talking about the experiences that they've had. And I think that a lot of it now is going to be about what additional support is being offered. I mean, I think we're in this bizarre time where blended learning is there, and there's an opportunity, I think, to communicate to students the service that they're going to receive, what the experience is going to be like. And I think that they're looking to be shown rather than told what that experience is going to be. And I think that video and authentic student-generated content are absolutely key in being able to deliver that message.
And having worked with Tony, I know that this attention to detail is something that's very important to international student marketing audiences. So I was interested in finding a little bit more about how micro needs could influence how we communicate with students during the pandemic.
The micro needs. I think at one end of the extreme, you've got the outcomes. Students really interested in what's going to happen next. What does success look like? I'm going to get this great degree, and then I'm going to get an internship, and then I'm going to get a great job, and I really want to understand what the full journey looks like. But then also within that, I want to understand whether I can walk to the 7-Eleven from my accommodation, and whether they sell the favourite noodles I've always grown up eating. Oh, and by the way, can I bring my favourite pillow? There are these kind of very real human needs that need to be answered, as well as the big things. And I think that universities sometimes forget that. We end up in that sort of free in a tree, the typical old, I've got this lovely picture of a sunny day on a campus with 3 students holding books to their chest, standing near a tree in a lovely part of the campus with the words, "We are very welcoming to international students." And it just becomes, there's nothing authentic about that. And it doesn't tell you anything about the real difference between, maybe an urban campus versus a rural campus where the only way to get there is a bus that only runs till 7 o'clock in the evening, or whatever it might be. I think it's that real sort of realism of, and try to not make people jump through hoops. They've got Google Maps and they can work out whether Uber's in the region or whether you can get pizza delivery, but probably better just to authentically tell them rather than make them do lots and lots of research.
So it feels like being able to capture these micro needs is going to be more important than ever, kind of with whatever happens with COVID over the coming months or even potentially years. And I think even students looking to start in 2021 will be looking for assurances that university life and learning can still be positive. I think we've probably got a few earthquakes, Godzilla, and definitely Brexit booked in before Christmas. So proving that institutions are resilient and trustworthy and will continue to provide great experiences is very important. And as I touched on at the beginning, kind of being asked to record a video to share this sort of stuff, not your skateboarding dog on TikTok, can be many people's sort of like vision of hell. So I asked Nick from the student room what tactics his team used to encourage students to record, really purpose-led, meaningful video content.
It starts with, for us, the kind of content that we're looking to put out on the site, and the roots of the student room are in its community, and they are in students sharing information with each other. Any of the content that we create on the site is intended to reflect that peer-to-peer element of the student room. What we aim to do with article content when we create it is to quote discussions from the forums, to quote real students, and to really present that student view of a particular situation, or to provide student advice on a particular topic. So that's something then that is by its very nature authentic. It is by definition going to feel honest to the reader, because there is content there that is coming directly from someone who's on your level. And what we have done over the past few years is take the same approach with video. And there's a few approaches that we could have with our video content. But what we feel the best approach is to put students in front of the camera and to enable students to tell their own stories. So we use the Storytagger tool to enable us to do that, in particular with some of our university partnerships, where we are working directly with university vloggers, and we're able to direct those vloggers remotely to provide them with the kind of questions that we want them to answer, and then it's over to them. And the video that we get back then is raw and it's authentic, and we're able to embed it into those articles in a way that supports the content that's already in there. So we may run a feature that is an interview with a student, and they're describing what their experience of university has been like, how they've settled in, what it was like when they first got there and they thought they wouldn't make any friends, and then they realised that, wow, actually it's fantastic. Maybe we'll run a feature around that, and then we can also run a piece of video from that very student, run it alongside the content. You've got that extra layer of authenticity and that extra layer of engagement within the feature. And that's something that we look to do wherever possible within our content.
It's really interesting. I've got to say, the student room are, they've just got student engagement and developing conversations and participation kind of hard baked into how they work. And we've learned so much working with Nick and his team. And I think what he was talking about really underpins the situation we find ourselves in, where students are filtering out a lot of that top-down messaging to really sort of discover the content that they trust. They know what it looks like, and you'd be really brave to try and fake it these days. And I think this is why Storytag is such a powerful tool for the student room, as it coaches students through the process of actively reflecting on an experience or opinion and building that out into a short, simple narrative. I also asked Tony how he's approached getting students to create user-generated content as well.
So I've tried lots of different ways to stimulate content. I think that bite-size and authentic is probably the most useful way. And I think that really it's around purpose. There's been some great things in the sector, like the We Are International and You Are Welcome Here, on the back of the kind of Brexit and Trump things, where people really feel that they need to tell people that international students are welcome. And there's been a load of great content around people looking after other people's mental health and caring for one another. So I find that sort of purpose-driven content, inherently we're all good people and we do want to help one another, and quite often that can be the motivating factor that leads to that authentic content. I think the challenge that we face as marketeers is being honest with ourselves about what is the authentic, unique value proposition of one place of study over another, and then how do we get the students to help tell that story.
And yeah, I totally agree with Tony that purpose is such an important way to motivate people. But just to highlight again that it has to be based on reality and things that are important to students. So it's kind of giving them permission to talk about stuff that they feel comfortable about. And I mean, really, the best user-generated platforms give people rails to make stuff. It takes the creative pressure away, but most importantly, helps them create something that they're proud of with minimal effort. And the content still feels very real, but it has value and it doesn't require a whole load of post-production time. And I asked Nick why this level of direction when getting people to make user-generated content is so important.
One of the main challenges when you're asking someone to create video for you is the level of direction that you have over it. So it's really easy now for anyone to pick up the phone and to create video. And in the past, we've asked people to just record us a video on this particular topic, and you might send over exactly what you want in an email and ask them to send you a video back once they've done it. And where we found that difficult is that people can go off on all kinds of tangents, and what you get back might not be what you were expecting. It might be a lot longer than what you thought you were going to get, or an awful lot shorter. And it's really hard if you're not there present with that person who's recording the video to actually guide them towards what it is that you want from them. And that's where we've been using the Storytagger tool, and that's where we found that so helpful, because it enables us to really specifically define how long someone should record for, and we're also able to put prompts up on their own screen while they're recording, so that we can have that level of direction. One of our most popular video projects is a partnership with the University of East Anglia, where we create video content from their vloggers about what it's like to live at university. And they're all the way over in Norwich. We're based all the way down in Brighton, and it's not particularly easy for us to be there, present in the room when they're recording that video. So instead we're directing them from afar. And what we've found super useful is using that element of being able to use the Storytagger tool to put prompts up for them to follow, and keeping those prompts really tight, keeping them really super directed, and giving people as much guidance as possible as to what it is that you're looking for. And what we've found is that the more guidance we give and the more specific we are about what we're looking for from the video, the better the final product comes out. But what we're not doing is scripting anyone. They've still got the opportunity to talk naturally, just with a focus on the specific questions that we want them to consider.
Yeah, so many important points there. I think the fact of you're not scripting people is really important. And traditionally, when we used to send out video crews, you'd have an interviewer acting as a sort of silent moderator who would kind of help form those conversations and get them flowing, and even tell people how to start their sentences. And from my own experience, it doesn't matter if you're in a different city. I think you could just be in the next room. Getting someone to record something on their own on their phone is a huge challenge, and having it all packaged up into one experience is really the only way that you can guarantee that the vast majority of people will record something that's going to be of use to you once you get it on your computer. And just to build on Nick's points around why people simply just don't do this on their phone, we really see three main barriers to kind of people just kind of picking up their iPhone, Android device, whatever, and filming great content. So, I mean, whilst technology is in a really good place, it's still a barrier to curating this content. I mean, if you ask people to share some videos on a specific topic, you'll not only, as Nick said, receive some really long videos, really short ones, ones that stray off the point, but you'll also get the content from TikTok, Insta, Facebook, WhatsApp, with a whole bunch of format, GDPR and privacy headaches that go along with it. The smarter students who might help you out or try to help you out by sharing via WeTransfer, Dropbox, Mega, they'll probably just make your IT team start spitting feathers and sending angry emails to you. And lastly, going back to that important point, it's like, while we're all great story sharers, retellers, we're not so good at story creation ourselves. So hopefully you don't mind me just sharing a few screens on how StoryTagger can help you achieve this. So StoryTagger is a platform that guides people through the process of reflecting, as I said, those jumbled ideas in their head, putting them down into a succinct, tight narrative arc and filming it. And you just get a mobile app, which is completely branded to your university, and you can create custom interview frameworks within the app that help people share their stories. So the first thing you get to see is a helicopter view of the story that you're going to share. Now, the whole thing that StoryTagger uses lots of nudge principles to take away people's fear of filming, helping them build confidence that they've got something worthwhile to share, that they feel they have utility to be able to talk about as well. So here you can see that this video has been split into 3 parts. It instantly starts feeling a little bit more achievable, a little less scary, knowing that it's been broken down. The next thing it does is it enables you to provide a series of what we call prompts for each one of these parts. And what these do is they surface different ideas of what the student can be talking about. Now, again, this instantly makes them feel a little bit more confident about what they're going to share, because you know the sort of things that they feel confident about talking about. Now you're giving them permission to be able to do that. So what they can do is they can select some of the questions that they want to answer, and then they can also go in and put down some notes against those questions, which enable them to kind of read those while they're recording. Again, just taking some of the pressure away from that recording process. Now, when we look at the actual recording side of things, again, it's coaching and helping them as they're going through it. So you can see here, we're monitoring the light levels and the sound levels. So if they're in a sort of noisy bar area, for example, the app would tell them to plug their headphones in so you get a clearer sound. It's also monitoring their eye line, so it makes sure people's heads get nicely moved up the screen. So you've got space at the bottom for titles, captions, and subtitles. And so once it's all good to record, you get a little countdown, and then you can see here the notes and the prompts are appearing on screen. You've got a timer here, which just makes sure people stick to making nice short videos. If you finish before you've completed the timer, you can press stop. That will save your video. You can retake it very quickly if you want to, or you can accept that and then move on to the next stage where you're able to add a title to your video, so you can kind of customize what you're calling it, so you can kind of personalize how the video is named, and then also just pick a thumbnail for your video. And once you're happy with everything, you can just preview your video. The app stitches all of the bits of video content together, so there's no editing, no kind of technical skills needed. It uploads it to the server. You get an email coming through saying there's another video ready to review. And then you can download that and share it across social media. You can send it back into the app as well, so it gives other students an idea of what sort of things being spoken about. So it's really flexible. It's all designed to build confidence, help people create great content, and to take all the kind of, you know, expense, the costly sort of amount of time that it requires to capture this sort of content from students. So if anyone's got any questions, please do pop them into the chat, and we'll see if we can answer those at the end. One of the other things I just wanted to share with you was, and I think my video is frozen here, so is that working? I'm not sure. I don't think it is. Sorry about that. It's got a freeze frame of me there. This is the process that the student room followed for curating the content, and I thought this might be quite useful to share. So the first stage is their content team. They build the topic, so the interview framework, and they test that internally, and then secondly they release that to the ambassadors, and they also release it with a short video that one of their team has recorded, showing, kind of talking about the values. So say if it was about mental health, they'd be talking about how that story would help people, the kind of impact it would make on other students' lives. And going back to Tony's point, that kind of intrinsic fact that we're all good people and we like to help is reinforced and really kind of pinpointed in those videos that get shared with the app. And then the ambassador records their video, they submits it, the content team publishes it back into the app, so it encourages other ambassadors to share their story, and then the content team can publish that video, and it can be shared on web pages and YouTube channels, wherever it needs to go. And I've just lost my mouse. Bear with me a second. I'll see if now my calculator's appeared on screen. Oh, there we go. There's my mouse. Excellent. Right. Okay. And then the next thing I just wanted to share was, and this has been really inspired by how the student room work, but there's so many different ways that this source content can be repurposed and become part of your sort of content production plan. So repurposing the video content. So what Nick's team have been doing, they've been getting transcripts from the videos and using those to help write short blogs, getting a number of video transcripts together to write longer articles, being able to identify specific quotes from students and using those on the social channels or within the articles that they're writing. As I mentioned before, social videos, putting these videos onto different social channels, using them as social proof within articles, so just getting little clips that reinforce the sort of student viewpoint of something that's been written to kind of identify where it's come from. Video montages are really powerful, where you get about 10, 15 students talking about the same topic, but again applying all the different nuances to it. Ripping out the audio for podcast content, you can get stills, video diaries, and also using the videos to start conversations on social spaces. And I've lost my mouse again. Bear with me. There we go. I don't know why that's playing a recording of me there. I'm going to turn that video feed off now because that just seems to be breaking everything. Let's just delete that. Go away. Okay. And so in summary, I think, you know, young people's trust in government and leadership, you know, may well have been damaged long term by COVID, and that does risk spreading. And you know, young people have been losing trust in top-down messages. So I think finding new ways of sharing messages through the voice of students is something that's becoming more and more urgent and important. So obviously students listen to other students, and when there's so much change going on, student stories are going to be more important than ever to help people create those sort of deeper connections. All the FAQs that have been fine-tuned over the last 5-10 years are kind of a little bit out of date now. And even if they were answering the new questions, you know, would they be universally trusted? We need to find new ways of building up a trusted resource of answers to some of the more human questions that Tony was pointing out that are starting to emerge. And really the only way to kind of prove resilience to COVID, Godzilla, Brexit is through the voice of students. And if you can curate positive stories about how students at your university are kind of, you know, the experiences they're having during COVID, then when Godzilla or Brexit hit, it won't require such a huge leap of faith for them to see how resilient university life is to whatever else is going on in the world. And really, you only get one chance to bank this content, hopefully. And we're going to be living through the impact of this pandemic for many, many years to come. And I think if you can deliver on your promises now and prove that, then your word will really carry trust, as trust may well erode in other environments. So kind of really now is the time to start thinking about capturing these stories and say putting them in the bank to reassure future students how well the university has dealt with the situation that we're facing now. So I hope that's been useful. I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that have come through. So we've got, can people add external videos? We like to use these for societies, but they may need to add clips of what they do, for example, performances. So you can flip the camera. So if somebody wanted to, I mean, the idea of StoryTagger is to capture that sort of person talking about an experience or showing something that is kind of happening in that moment, rather than kind of sharing sort of more library sort of footage of things that have been created previously. So yeah, absolutely, they could orchestrate it. So if they were socially distanced in a room, they could capture a little bit of performance or preparing for the performance or other voices to help reinforce the value of that society.
But yeah, it's not a kind of video editing platform necessarily, but you could take people's footage that they record through StoryTagger or other platforms and then separately edit them together.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's actually what a lot of teams do as well. So you can use the StoryTagger footage out of the box and you have that raw interview. It doesn't need any editing, but it's such powerful content that can be blended in post-production with other formats. That it's incredibly powerful to add. And all the video editors that use StoryTagger in organizations like Adidas, IKEA, sort of big enterprise sort of like retail companies, say that the StoryTagger footage they get from people all around the world is some of the best interview footage that they've seen, because it's so personal and authentic and real, and the sort of production quality is better than you get just from filming on your phone, because it is structured.
Carl, you've got a question that I've accidentally hidden because I got excited and started pressing buttons. So this question comes from Emma, who wants to know about subtitles and transcript. Is that something that's automatic, or can that be added?
It will be. So this week we're just releasing a big update to the app. So the version that I've just given you a sneak preview of on the screen, we're going to be releasing in the next couple of days. And the next big update is on the administration platform. So I didn't show you any of that today because it's just a bit too vast to go into on a quick call. But that will, in August, September, provide SRT files, which you will be able to then import into any platform. Pretty much takes SRT files now, and that'll give you live subtitles. And the nice thing about not embedding them into the video is means with an SRT file, if your international team wants to use those videos, then they can get those translated, and it'll put a live translation onto the video when you share it.
And again, people can, you know, use the footage, use transcription services and stuff to generate things as well, even if it's not currently, you know, in there.
Yeah, and we use tools like that at the moment as well, so we can offer plenty of advice. And any video questions that you've got, we'd be very happy to support, even if it's kind of outside StoryTagger sorts of things.
Because one of the use cases that we've talked about, you and I, and with NUS, is for virtual freshers fairs. So I know we've got a question about how much StoryTagger costs, but I know that NUS are looking at a kind of a group offer that would allow individual unions to benefit from being part of a larger deal. But yeah, could you tell us a little bit about how the pricing structure works?
Well, the pricing structure that we're working with in the NUS is, I mean, look, we know that universities have very little in the way of kind of financial resources at the moment, and all you guys are just like super busy. So we're putting the offering together so it will require as little time as possible and as little financial commitment as possible. So we're still in discussions about that, but it will be something that we're trying to design it so it's extraordinarily affordable for everybody who wants to take part.
And even if people don't want to do that, they can contact you directly and you can chat about different packages and options that they can do separately. They don't have to go through NUS.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for universities, so there is pricing on the website, but what I'd suggest is getting back to me directly because we can put together custom packages for universities. And we really do appreciate the sort of situation that universities face at the moment. And we're trying to do everything we can to sort of support and get through sort of next few months, but while curating as much of this important content of student experience as possible.
Yeah, I've certainly told Carl how great student unions are and how as charities and wonderful people they deserve a good deal. So, so you've got two more questions here. So Emma's asked about what you get out of StoryTagger. So do you get a link that you can embed in a web page? Do you get the raw video files? What do people get?
Yeah, so you get the raw video files. Now you can either download those, we can put branding on. It's simple, but it means that again there's no need for post-production, so you can get your university primary color, your university logo, the name of the contributor, the title of their video, which is all editable. You can manage all of this stuff in the platform, and then you just get a little title screen with that on the video that you can then put straight onto social channels. So it's an MP4 file, very standard, or you can just download a raw video which hasn't got any branding on it if you're looking to kind of edit it, or you know, just put it up as part of something that's already branded so it doesn't need it on the video.
And then how does StoryTagger does it allow you to use multiple takes? I think as someone who's a terrible first-time video person, I always need at least one take.
Yeah, I generally need hundreds if I'm doing. I'm terrible. So one of the things that we've built in, and it's something that people tell us they really like, is the ability to very quickly retake if you're not happy with what you've done. So on the even on the current version that you can download now, but even more so on the version that we're going to be releasing this week, the ability to very quickly shoot again is built in. You can do it as many times as you like.
Cool.
Until you're happy. Yeah.
I was going to say, I've got one final question from me. What sort of briefs or topics have you found that really work? So whether or not people are going to use StoryTagger for video, are there any sort of like killer questions or kind of particular things you found that make it really easy for people to talk kind of enthusiastically about what they're doing?
So I think Nick's team at the Student Room I mean, they had the benefit of having all the forum conversations, I mean, which are open to everybody, but they were able to really sort of dial in on some of the important issues to students from the conversations they were having on there. So they were posting, I mean, they've done so many different, the ambassadors at UEA basically sign up for, I think it's like 6 months, and they record a number of videos during that period over a whole range of topics, from student welfare, mental health, finance, staying safe when you're going out, how to cope with not drinking if you don't want to, kind of all sorts of things. And they're all questions that the students feel quite passionate about, or the ones who do feel passionate about it are able to talk with expertise, and the ones who don't have that much expertise are still able to find something within the selection of questions that they're presented with that they can add value to that conversation. And we've had sort of like amazing content coming from students where they've been talking very honestly about kind of mental health challenges that they faced, showing people around their room. So there was someone who just moved they just moved out of halls into a shared house, and she was showing how she decorated the room and stuff that she'd put in there to sort of like you know, make her feel more at home and take away some of the anxiety that she was feeling from kind of moving outside of that very supported network into an environment where she was feeling kind of like, you know, she was having to do a lot more work to kind of look after herself.
Yeah.
So I think it was, you know, Tony who mentioned it really has to be authentic and purposeful and answer a real need that students kind of recognize straight away, and something they would like to help others with.
So yeah, I really like that idea of using your existing knowledge of what topics are important or what questions people have to pull out those things to then ask. But I also loved the comment about not always focusing on the big picture. I think unions and universities are often very, thinking about your whole time here and forgetting those tiny things like, am I allowed to bring this? What should I pack? And so I think, yeah, lots of those ideas and giving people options of things to talk about, I think they really work.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've, you know, I've worked with kind of international student recruitment for a number of years, and those micro details are so important to those audiences, because once they step on the plane, you know, they've lost that ability to grab that pillow if they find out they can bring it when they get here. So I think with a lot of the distancing that's happening between students and universities right now, as far as being able to see what's going on, being able to have that consistent contact, or being able to be sure that their preconceptions of what the reality is going to be like actually, you know, following through with the reality. Those micro questions are becoming more important to domestic students as well.
Yeah, definitely. Such a good way to show that you understand what students are worried about or what they're excited about by helping them hear about it from other students. Yeah, it feels like a great thing.
Absolutely. And once you've got that content coming in, you suddenly realize that in the way that you express some of these things, you perhaps haven't been using the exact language that the students kind of necessarily use themselves. And I think it really helps you fine tune the kind of narrative that you use to talk about things, to make sure that it's very much aligned with the sort of language, the experience and the nuance that students naturally use when they're just talking.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, well, thanks so much for that, Carl. Really, really helpful. As Carl said, get in touch, check out their website and see what they're doing. I'd love to hear how people are using video, what stuff you found that works. So yeah, thanks for that, Carl, and thanks for supporting Comms by the Coast. I'll be editing this video and putting it online for you to watch back. So if you want to share it with a colleague, or you want to kind of go back to a key point, you can do. There are plenty of other sessions on this week as part of Comms by the Coast, so do take a look at those. There's lots to choose from, whatever your interest in union comms is, and do share your ideas. You can, on social media, you can use the hashtag SUComms, or you can add comments directly onto the event website. But yeah, thanks so much, Carl, for coming along, and thanks for everyone for joining us today.
Thank you, Joe. Thanks everyone for joining. Do appreciate your time today. Have a great rest of the week and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.